I'm happy to be disseminated.
I don't know. Okay.
I'm happy to be disseminated. And the right time to do that was
Is the sound on?
Because I need someone to tell me it's working again.
Yes. Everyone is ready.
Yeah.
Coronial Court Statute. Please be seated.
Oh, yes, Mr.
Your Honour, sorry, I just wanted to make a comment out of the abundance of caution that my silence to what Dr. Freckleton has alleged about publication should not be taken away from acquiescence or acceptance of what he is asserting. I simply understand that matters to be then will be done so at a later time, which point I can make sufficient response to those. Just to make that clear.
Sure. Yes, thanks, Mr. Officer. Before we get to you, Dr. Freckleton, Deputy Commissioner, do you promise to tell the truth to the court?
I do.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Freckleton.
Thank you, Your Honour. Deputy Commissioner, would you state your full name for Her Honour, please?
My full name is Murray John Smallpage, with one L.
And are you one of the two Deputy Commissioners of the Northern Territory Police Force?
That's correct, Your Honour.
Your Honour, before going into the background and similar of Deputy Commissioner Smallpage, there is a short statement of 1 page that he would like to make, particularly directed toward the family on behalf of the Northern Territory Police Force. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. There's maybe some family in court, but I'm happy for you to direct it to me if you prefer.
Your Honour, and to the community members that are present, on behalf of the Northern Territory Police Force, we extend sincere condolences and sympathies to the family and friends of Kumanjayi Walker and the community of Yundamu. We are sorry for Kumanjayi's passing and for the circumstances of his passing. We are sorry too for the distress caused by not promptly informing his family and the community of his death, and we acknowledge that the police sent an ambulance to the airstrip. That should not have occurred. We apologise to the community and to the health personnel involved, especially Nurse Walcott, for this. We apologise for the manner in which Kumanjayi's family members were informed of his passing on the morning of 10th November 2019, when police members did not refer to him in a culturally appropriate way and did not use his correct first name. The information was not given in a compassionate and sensitive manner, and we accept that the manner in which the information was communicated caused distress to his family. We acknowledge it was culturally inappropriate for police to ask Eddie Robertson to identify Kumanjayi's body. We apologise to Mr Robertson and assure the community that we have listened and we have learned to do better. We apologise that Kumanjayi's transfer to the police vehicle consisted of dragging, which understandably causes distress to his family and community. We apologise for the carrying of long arms in Yuendamu and acknowledge the apprehension that caused the community. We offer these condolences and apologies in the genuine recognition of Kumanjayi's tragic death and its significance and lasting effects on the Yuendamu community. The Northern Territory Police Force acknowledges the tragedy of Kumanjayi's death, both alone and in the context of grave and unjust history that includes events such as the Coniston Massacre. The Northern Territory Police Force has taken active steps and will continue to do so, recognise there is much yet to do to rebuild trust between the community and the Northern Territory Police Force through collaborative discussions and consultations.
Dr. Frickleton.
Thank you, Your Honour. Deputy Commissioner, you have made 3 affidavits to assist Her Honour, have you not?
That's correct, Your Honour.
The first, Your Honour, is dated 12 July 2022. It's 7-120 capital A. Are the contents of that true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
They are.
The second affidavit is dated 2 September 2022. It is 7-120B. Once again, are the contents of that true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
They are, Your Honour.
You've made a third affidavit dated 10 February 2023. That was the one to which I was referring this morning.
Thank you, and I have it.
It is 7-120 capital B, subject to the matters which I shall raise with you in a moment. Are the contents of that true and correct?
They are, Your Honour.
Now, do you have those 3 affidavits and their exhibits in front of you, Deputy Commissioner?
I do.
All right, I'd ask you, Your Honour, may the witness refer to those affidavits in the course of his evidence?
Yes.
Thank you. I'd ask you then to go to the third of those affidavits and to the 12th of the exhibits, which is MS12. This is a table to which reference will be made throughout the evidence, Your Honour. MS12, you can see it is a table which summarises changes made and action taken by the police force since the tragic passing of Kumanjayi. Do you have that small page?
I do, Your Honour.
Thank you. Would you turn then to page 6 of that? And do you see a heading 2/3 of the way down the page, use of force reporting?
I do.
There's a second entry which reads on the left-hand side of the page, new templates for use of force reports. Do you see that?
Yes.
And there's a reference to an affidavit of Assistant Commissioner Porter there. You see that?
I do, Your Honour.
And do you say to Her Honour that there's a typo there, it ought to be paragraph 120 rather than paragraph 20?
That's correct.
Okay. Otherwise, would you now turn please into Exhibit 17 to your affidavit. And go to page 5 of that.
Yes.
At the bottom of that page, paragraph 13, it's headed drug and alcohol testing. Do you see that?
I do.
There are a number of columns. There's one which has reference to various affidavits, for instance, small page 1. Do you see that column?
I do.
And you say that there's a reference at the bottom of that section to small page affidavit 3, paragraphs, numbers there.
Yes.
Do you say to Her Honour that there's a small error there, and instead of paragraphs 389 to 410, it ought to be paragraphs 411 to 422?
I do, Your Honour.
Thank you. Would you turn over the page to entry number 14, use of force philosophy and
Yes.
policy?
Yes.
Do you see that? Once again, in that same column which refers to affidavits, There are two entries, one in relation to your first affidavit and one in relation to your third. Do you say that the paragraph number 117 referred to there, in fact, ought to be paragraph 120?
Correct. Yes, Your Honour.
Okay. Those are the adjustments to the affidavit, which you say otherwise it's true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, Your Honour.
Now, so in the first of your affidavits, I'm going to move at times, Your Honour, between the first and the third affidavits in particular, with occasional reference to the second. You make reference to your own history as a police officer in paragraphs 2 and following. In short, sir, did you commence as a police officer in 1979?
I joined as a police cadet in 1979 and became a police constable in 1980.
Right. So that takes you to something in the order of 44 years as of 2023, is that right?
Correct, my 44th year.
All right. You were a detective from 1986 onwards.
That's correct.
You from 2016, you were the commander and then assistant commissioner for police in regional Western Australia, is that right?
That's correct.
How many stations did you have to look after in that role?
Through that role, both as commander and as assistant commissioner, regional Western Australia, I was responsible for the provision of policing services across 124 police stations, 1,600 police officers and 2.5 million square kilometres of Western Australia.
Okay. And in 2019, I think you were appointed as an assistant commissioner in Western Australia with responsibility for professional standards.
I was promoted to assistant commissioner in 2015. I was appointed to the new role, or swap roles from regional Western Australia to assistant commissioner professional standards in 2019.
And you joined the Northern Territory Police Force early in 2020, did you not?
That's correct, Your Honour.
So that was about 3 months after the death of Kumanjayi Walker.
That's correct, Your Honour, in February 2020.
Could you tell Her Honour a little bit more, please, about the rural and remote responsibilities that you had in the Pilbara and Kimberley areas of Western Australia?
Your Honour, prior to, throughout my career, my extensive career, I did serve for a period of time as a police constable in Kununurra, Western Australia, between 1985 and 1986. I was also a special constable in the Northern Territory Police Force at that time. Later on in my career, I performed other investigative responsibilities which took me to the remote and regional parts of Western Australia. In 2006, I was appointed the District Police Superintendent for the Pilbara region of Western Australia, which encompasses some 440,000 square kilometres of Western Australia that adjoins the Northern Territory and includes a number of remote police stations, remote localities, and I was based in Karratha, Western Australia. In 2009, I transferred as the District Police Superintendent for the Kimberley, responsible for policing operations across the Kimberley region of Western Australia. A role I performed for a number of years until I was promoted to Commander, and I returned as the Commander for Intelligence for the West Australian Police Force.
And in those roles in the Pilbara and the Kimberley, were you required to liaise with the Northern Territory Police Force given the adjoining areas concerned?
I did both in the Pilbara and the Kimberley, and later as the Commander for Regional Western Australia and the Assistant Commissioner through cross-border jurisdictional issues. There was a West Australian police officer attached to Kintore Police Station, and there is a Northern Territory police officer attached to a West Australian police station at Warracoona, and I had quite numerous exposures between cross-border regions to ensure adequate service of policing services in the remote parts of both jurisdictions.
And is it your experience that while people in time past have drawn lines on the map of Australia, persons in the areas we've just been discussing move across the borders with regularity?
With great regularity, and as we all know, they are just lines on a map for many Aboriginal people who live in those remote locations of Australia.
Yes. Now, when you started as a cadet in the late 70s, there wasn't formal acculturation training or sensitisation, it was more informal, is that right?
Very much so, Your Honour.
What have been the significant experiences that you've had which have attuned you to the culture of Indigenous persons?
I'll speak specifically, Your Honour, about a number of important people in my life and journey, but again I'll make the point that my attraction as a police officer has always been to remote and regional locations have been the most rewarding portions of my career, and you know, the engagement with Aboriginal people has been significant in that lengthy journey. As a constable in Kununurra, way back in the 80s, I had worked exclusively with an Aboriginal police aide by the name of Noel Rivers. I was the constable. I was a very young constable. He was a police aide, but he was my mentor and taught me a great deal of things about policing in Aboriginal communities, and he's someone I hold in high regard.
Was he the equivalent of what we would know in the Northern Territory call an ALO?
He was the equivalent of an ACPO, so he had special sworn powers.
Right.
But he lived exclusively at Kununurra, and he provided me with a pathway in how to deal with Aboriginal issues in an environment and a time when policing was vastly different to what we see today.
And after that?
Later on in my career, and at several times in my career, I've also dealt with Aboriginal police officers, some of which are still friends of mine today, still visit me in Darwin, including, hopefully he's listening, Sergeant John Hart, first Aboriginal police officer in charge of Yalgoo Police Station. Again, person of significant influence in my life, and taught me about respect. Later on in my police career, again through different interactions in different community forums, particularly in the Pilbara and more exclusively in the Kimberley region of Western Australia, where I met and dealt with a great number of Aboriginal people who provided a really great mentorship support and helped me navigate the difficult pathway between law enforcement and cultural sensitivity. Specifically in 2009, I participated in an Aboriginal suicide summit on country at Billard Aboriginal community, where I spent a number of days, along with a number of other people at Billard Aboriginal community living on country, to try and come up with meaningful solutions around a significant number of youth suicides that had previously occurred in the police, in the, a strong sense of greater depth of understanding for the complexities of policing in remote locations.